Alright, welcome back everybody. This is going to be another tomato review, and it's going to be on this tomato right here, and this is called Fallon's First Snow, or Faelan's First Snow, whatever that is. Basically what this is a variegated tomato, but it's a different type of variegated tomato. This is a regular leaf variegated tomato, but it produces basically purple Cherokee tomatoes. It must have crossed over at some point somewhere down the road, and it crossed with a purple Cherokee, and now the purple Cherokee basically became variegated. So what this really is a variegated purple Cherokee tomato is basically what it is. But it's an interesting variety nonetheless. I don't know of too many variegated varieties out there, though they're starting to pop up quite frequently now because people are starting to cross the variegated varieties of tomatoes along with all these other varieties. So you're going to start to see a massive influx of variegated type tomatoes coming in. So it's going to become very popular in the future. So people are starting to breed them now. But this is some of the first ones that you're going to see in the market now. Of course, you got the variegated regular tomato. They call that the splash of cream. And now you got this one here, which is called Fallon's First Snow. And then I think there's a potato leaf variegated tomato called Pink Lady, which is something I'm trying to get seed for now. And that's a new variety coming to the market. So there's a few other varieties, and I believe there's also a micro dwarf variety. Somebody had sent me seeds to the micro dwarf variety of variegated tomato, or it was micro dwarf or dwarf or something like that. And I grew it and it died, so I don't have any more seeds to it. So, but there's supposedly a dwarf variety of variegated tomato too as well. So I wasn't successful with that. But nonetheless, this is a variegated tomato. Now this variegated tomato doesn't variegate the leaves quite as intense as a splash of cream. It does get variegated, but not that much. So in the beginning it variegates a lot, and then as the plant gets bigger and taller, it starts to green up towards the top of the plant. But then towards the end of the season, and it's already in a fruiting stage, then the variegation seems like it starts to come back again. So maybe some environmental conditions really dictate how these tomatoes variegate or not. So I'll put some images right up above over here, and you can see some of the variegated leaves, some of the pictures I took of the variegated leaves on this plant. And this plant, as far as production, it's not the greatest producing plant. I guess if you put it in direct sunlight and grow it in a 5-gallon self-watering container like I usually do, and you put a lot of attention on it, yeah, it'll be more productive. But if you're growing 300 varieties like I do, you can't spread that kind of attention around to every single one of those varieties. So you just let them grow, and whatever they do, they do. So that's basically what I've been doing this year. And I haven't been really putting any attention to them. Just let them do what they do. If the blight gets them, well, then they get knocked out early. If they don't, that kind of a thing. So it did pretty good. I mean, I got about maybe 8 tomatoes. This one being one of the bigger of the tomatoes. The rest of them have some cat facing on it, and they're smaller in size, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good size, but they're not quite as big as this one. This one's got a little size on it. So that's really about all I know about the tomato, who created it and all that stuff. I'll put whatever information I have down in the description. You can go look at it there. So let's put this thing on a scale, and let's see what it looks like on the scale. Zoom you in a little bit there when I'm trying to, so you can see the numbers. Let's see how many ounces this thing is. I know it ain't pounds, but it's got some weight on it, though. I will say that. Okay, so this is about a 6.5 ounce tomato, which isn't bad. That's about 7 ounces typical for the purple Cherokees. This one's about 6.5 ounces. Not bad size. Again, here I'll show you the tomato. You can see it's quite a beautiful pattern on it. Very typical for a purple Cherokee. You can see it's got that deep mahogany maroon type color to it. It's not just pink, it's like a purplish, slight purplish. And if you look really close at the skin, you can see some patterns in it. Okay, so it does have a little bit of strangeness to the tomato skin. It's not typically perfectly a purple Cherokee. There is some variegation, like looking like it wants to maybe come out in this tomato. There's a little bit of variegation in there, and that's probably because it crossed with a variegated tomato, which was probably the variegated tomato. All right, so it's not totally ripe. It looks like some of the shoulders are still kind of on the green side, but it's good enough for us to do a review. You can see the bottom is nice and deep pink. The top seems a little bit hard yet, but that's okay. So why don't we cut it open and show you the inside. Wow, what a gorgeous looking tomato. What an absolute beauty. Look at that. That's beautiful. You got a lot of meat in the middle. That's a very good thing for you sauce makers out there. You can see it has the typical purple or black attributes to the seed, the gel on the seeds. They usually get that dark color. That's one of the reasons why these tomatoes inherit that name purple or black, because of the dark seeds. That's very typical for that. If you don't see that in a black or dark tomato, then it's not a true black or purple tomato. You know, you got to have that dark color on the seeds, the gel on the seeds. Yeah, you see some wilding in the rind, so obviously this is not a commercial variety tomato, but man, that is picture perfect, guys. That is, you slice that nice and thin, and you could easily put that on a sandwich. Very, very nice. Very, very gorgeous. And I'll show you the other side. Look at that. That is something to see, right? That is just nice. Again, I think we're about as ripe as you're going to get. It seems like the very top and the shoulders maybe could use a little more ripening, but not a big deal. The rest of the tomato seems to be okay. So let's cut a piece off and do a bricks on it. Here's a side view of it. You can see it's nice all the way through. Very, very nice tomato. Very nice. Let's do a bricks. Let's see what the brick says. Ooh, that's juicy. That is one juicy tomato, guys. Okay, it's 6 on the bricks. That's actually pretty good. That is definitely something I'm looking forward to. It means there's going to be a little bit of sweetness on there. For a tomato this size, that's pretty good for a bricks. Wow, that's good, guys. Holy smokes. Right out the gate. Wow. That is absolutely amazing. Immediately, as soon as I ate the thing, I knew right where we stand with it. As far as what would I rate this tomato in the end, I'm telling you, this is going to be a number 2, possibly even a number 1. This is a typical Cherokee Purple variety of tomato. It has all the attributes of a Cherokee Purple, so we're definitely batting a home run right out the gate with this variety. And the fact that it's variegated really adds an extra bit of interest to the plant. You can also grow it slightly as an ornamental as well. So that variegation is a very beautiful thing to see in a plant. But the tomato itself, man, guys, that right there, that's it. And this is going to be a good review for this tomato. Very, very good review. In fact, I'm not even going to cut any more because I am going to squeeze seeds from it, but I'm also going to enjoy eating that with a little bit of sea salt. I wish I just got a lot more of those off the plant. I didn't quite get as many, so that's the one thing that might cause the rating to not be number 1, is because the production was a little bit on the low side, and that, you know, that's not okay. So let's start with the sweetness. The sweetness right out the gate was, I'm going to put that about 30. I'm going to put the sweetness and the effect of the sweetness on this thing. I'm going to put that at about a 30, between a 32 and a 35, somewhere up there. It's pretty high. It had a really good delivery of sweetness. It was just very, very delectable the way it was. It was very inviting, should I say. That's probably the right word to use for that. It was a very inviting sweetness effect. Definitely not lacking in the sweetness. The sweetness was definitely there with this tomato. Now we go over to the tangy. The tangy was right around the same thing, maybe even slightly lower than that. I'd probably go with the tangy part. I'm going to say probably around a 29 to a 30. It was slightly lower, but it was still there, and it was quite nice. It was just it was a perfect balance in my opinion. Slightly lower in the tangy with a real high sweetness on it. Between the two is a great balance, if you ask me. So the tangy was probably around a 29 to maybe a 30 on the tangy, and might even go to 31 on that. But there was some tanginess in there. Very, very nice. It delivered that tomato flavor to the back of your tongue very, very evenly, and it was just very exquisite type of a flavor. And now the tomato flavor was absolutely enormous. It was perfect. It was a perfect type of tomato experience. It's the kind of an experience even people who don't like tomatoes would like this tomato. The flavor on it is classic Cherokee Purple. You're going to get that same classic effect out of that tomato. And Cherokee Purples are rated some of the highest because of the consistency and all of these other things we're talking about now. Cherokee Purple ranks high in almost every category. And that's why, because it's just a perfectly balanced and well-designed tomato, whoever made the original Purple Cherokee cross. Perfectly. It was perfect. It's a great balance. And so the flavor was absolutely superb. It was a superior type flavor. It was an exquisite type flavor. And if I was to give that a rating from 0 to 10, I'm probably going to go about a 9 on the flavor. The 9 is very, very high. I very rarely give tomatoes ratings that are that high. It has to have a very unique and delicious and delectable type flavor. And this particular tomato definitely delivered that level of tomato flavor. Now, the tomato flavor I'm referring to is it works in contrast with the tangy and the sweet, but you got to understand that flavor goes to the back of your tongue. You have different regions of your tongue that pick up flavors. And once you start to train your tongue to look for these things, that's what's going to start to give you an idea on, what a really good tasting tomato is. And so I really look for certain regions of my tongue to light up. And that's that back part of the tongue going towards the uvula, where the back of your throat is. And along the sides of the back of the tongue, you have very large taste buds that are very sensitive to these flavors that we're looking for. And that region of your tongue is very important because that's what's going to draw you back into the tomato. It's not the front of your tongue. It's not down the center of your tongue. It's not the sides of the upper part of the tongue. It's the back part of your tongue. That's very important. That's the part that we want to affect, especially if you're a chef. If you're a chef, you definitely want to work on your dishes that affect that part of your tongue when you're working with tomatoes anyway. You want to affect that part that's going to affect that part of the tongue of your guest, so they go back into that meal again for another bite, until a point where they're like, man, I can't finish this. It was so good. I'm going to try again. You want that effect. That's what we're shooting for when we're using these type of tomatoes in our cooking. And this tomato definitely has that superior quality in flavor. The flavor was tremendous on this tomato. It's absolutely superb. It's one of the best flavors you can get is the Cherokee Purple. And that's basically what this is. It's a Cherokee Purple, except it's variegated. That's basically the only difference. Okay, so the moisture part of it, we're going to rate that high as well. The moisture was actually quite high. I'm going to put that about an 8 on the moisture. It was very wet and moist, which is also a good attribute because you need that moisture to really deliver this whole package on top. You need that moisture there to bring that to the back of the tongue. If that moisture is not there and it's a dry, chalky type of experience with a tomato, it's an awful experience. And I've had tomatoes that were dry and chalky, and they're creamy, they're granular, and they're dry, and the flavor does, even though the tomato might taste good, that it just doesn't deliver it to where you need it. And that's that region of your tongue that we want to deliver that wetness to. And so the moisture was kind of high, but it was really good because we're going to get into the other reasons why that high moisture worked really well with this combination. Usually I say with moisture you want to be around 6 to 7, somewhere in there. You want to be a little above average. We want to be around a 6 or a 7. This is actually higher than that, so we're actually getting too moist, but it was fine. And the reason why it was fine is because of these other things that we're going to talk about. As far as tardy and sour, there wasn't much tardiness. There may have been a little tinge of a tardiness to it, but very lightly. It would be maybe like a 0.05 on the scale of 1 to 10. 0 to 10. It would have been like below 1, basically. But there was a little bit of a tardiness there, which was good because it made your tongue kind of want to water up a little bit more and add some saliva to that mix, which is one of the effects you get from eating tomatoes, and that is an important attribute. So you kind of want that tardiness to work together with your tanginess a little bit. So it did have a little bit, very, 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 very tiny amount, but it was there, and it was well needed. So that's part of that balance. Undertones, there's no undertones. It tastes like tomato, has a great tomato flavor, but there were no off earthy tones or berry tones or anything like that with it. There was no other real little stray flavors that might offset you. This tomato would make an absolute superb and superior type of tomato sauce. Absolutely, hands down. If you were to get enough of these tomatoes and make a tomato sauce with that, even people who hate tomatoes would like this tomato. Absolutely, 100%. I can stick by that one. So there were no undertones in it. We're going to give that a 0. The texture. Now, I'm talking about the texture and why the moisture was working really good, and that's mainly because the texture was perfect. It has a nice body to the tomato. Let me just kind of hold this up to you, kind of explain this. It has nice body to it. So normally when tomatoes got a lot of body to it, they tend to be a little bit coarse, and they have like a little bit of unevenness to the inside. So some parts will be a little harder than others. Some parts will melt in your mouth, and so you get this unevenness with this type of body on this. With this tomato, especially Cherokee Purples in general, you don't get that. The texture of the tomato literally melts in your mouth, but at the same time, if you were to cut this tomato up into little cubes and everything and then put it into a salad, this tomato would definitely stay together in the salad. It's not going to melt and turn to mush in your salad. So it'll work perfectly in raw salads. And if I was to give the texture, and I'm also including the skins in the textures. I should make a separate bar. I just don't have enough room to keep adding other bars. But the skin itself was perfect. It broke up, even with the flesh being the way it was, which was soft. It was consistent, had a little body to it, but it was soft. It broke up in your mouth and basically melted in your mouth after you move it around a little bit, a couple of chews, and it's basically dissolves right down. And the skins weren't tough where you couldn't enjoy the tomato. They broke up with the tomato. You were able to swallow it. Didn't stick to the roof of your mouth or any of that effect. So the skins along with the texture, I'm going to give that a very high rating. I'm going to put that up there about an 8. And then, of course, production. Now, that's what I said in the earlier part of the video. I wasn't too impressed with production, but again, if you're growing this tomato by itself and you're growing it in a container and you're putting attention to it and you're letting it grow out, you'll probably get a lot of tomatoes off it. I just grew it, almost wild-like among all the other tomatoes, and it didn't get 100% sunlight, and it didn't get 100% water, and didn't get this, didn't get that, so I didn't get as good a production. If you were to put some attention to this, and you were to, let this tomato, it'll grow similar to the Cherokee Purple, which will give you probably anywhere between, in my opinion and my experience, anywhere between 12 and 18 tomatoes off a plant, and good sized ones like this, or even up to a pound even. I've had Cherokee Purples get quite large, and you just need to give it a lot of attention. If you don't give it that kind of attention, you're not feeding the plant, you're not doing this, you're gonna get subpar, performances in the end, sort of like what I went through. I just needed to get a lot of varieties sprouted and see how they do, and then next year when I go to grow a lot of these again, I have to make notes on what are some of the changes I need to do in order to try to get a higher production out of the tomato. I just needed to see what the plant was going to do. So it's kind of like a trial run for me. And then after I see, oh, it's a big plant, it's a small plant, it grows better in full sun. This one grows better in partial sun. It grows better away from plants, but together with plants. So once I make all these notes, I grow it again, I get double or triple my production because I know what the plant likes and doesn't like. So keep that in mind. Keep track of how your plants did, and make notes of that, and then try to make those changes the following year. So as an overall rating, what do I rate this? Well, I would rate it number 1. The only reason why I'm not rating it as a number 1, I'm rating it at like 2.5 if you want to go midway of that. I want to name this tomato a number 1, and the reason why I'm not doing that is because the production was a little low for me, and because of that reason, I wasn't, I need more than just, a half dozen of these tomatoes on my plant. And not all of them are this size. Some of them, they get weird shapes to it and maybe some cat facing. And again, that could just be environmental conditions that cause this. So because of that reason, it didn't take that number 1 place, though I will say this much. It's very close to being number 1. If it wasn't for the production being low this year, this would definitely be a number 1. And mainly because it's not only a delicious tasting tomato, but it's also variegated. It's a very beautiful tomato. You can use this for an ornamental if you want. You can put this in your ornamental beds and just add it to your variegated arrangements in your flower beds and everything. It's just a beautiful tomato or plant, to be honest with you. So that was the only reason why I didn't make 100% 1, but it's definitely above 2. Now, I'm going to say like 2.5 or something like that. It's definitely up there. It's almost number 1. It's almost like, or I shouldn't say 2.5. I should say it's like a 1.5. It's almost number 1. It's not quite 100%. I can't give it 100% because the production was a little low. But man, the flavor of that tomato, that flavor by itself, that effect of that tomato, is absolutely a number 1. So it's a gorgeous tomato, guys. I mean, I would highly recommend growing this variety out and really give this a go. Make sure when you grow this, you give it a lot of attention. You feed it regular, give it full sunlight. Pick off any bad leaves that might be getting blighty or whatnot like that. Keep it away from the other plants. You grow it up by itself, you're going to do very, very well. And it's a delicious and beautiful tomato plant. So not much more to say about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description below of this video, you'll see whatever information I can scrub about this tomato, as well as my website. Keep in mind that when I do update information on this variety of tomato, if you're doing research on it, and you're going to want to visit the website, because a lot of times I make changes on the website and not the video. So if I remember, I do the video too, but I don't always remember, and I got things to do. So I definitely update the website, and if you don't see the changes, you might be watching this for a year from now, and you say, oh, I wonder if there's anything else. Well, check the website and see if we updated the description in the website. It's very important you do that if you're doing research, because again, I'm not always making the changes in the video. Alright, so make sure you check that. Now, there will also be a link below where you can visit my website and pick up seeds for this tomato, as well as just being able to visit the page. So the link will be in the description below of this video, and it'll take you right over to the website. Alright, so that's basically it, guys. That's your tomato review for the Faelan's First Snow. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.